Don't go anywhere, stay tuned. Get ready to take a trip down memory lane. That table can only mean one thing. We'll be checking out arcade classics for the Sega Genesis. Now, this week is the 42nd anniversary of the Atari 2600. So, let's check out some classic Atari games right here. And it's funny, they don't really mention Atari on this box too much at all. But if you look at the bottom right here, it does have like some copyrights and the stuff that mentions Atari Corporation and you know, all that stuff right down there at the bottom. These are definitely Atari games. More than likely, they're not the 2600 ports, but they're the arcade ports. But hey, what the heck? Let's celebrate Atari 2600 by playing Atari games on the Sega Genesis. So we got Missile Command, Centipede, and we got good old classic Pong. And the main attraction on the front label right here was Centipede and Missile Command. You can see the nice cool looking label art. And Missile Command, they kind of did give it like an Atari 2600 look. I mean, look at that. That kind of looks like it. And of course the Centipede one looks a little bit more like the arcade version or the 5200, 7800 graphics. Yeah, it definitely has better graphics, but the Missile Command definitely looks similar to what you would see on the 2600. Then of course, as a bonus, also includes Pong. Look at that. You got the big huge Pong ball right there, and you got the Sega Genesis logo that got completely covered up by Pong. And it's not too often that you actually see a Sega Genesis logo on the spine label get covered up like that. That's very, very rare. You don't see that happening too often. Down the side right here it says Arcade Classics, Genesis, Sega. And on the back, once again, it says Flashback. It says Missile Command and Centipede are back and better than ever. So yeah, let's open this up here. And look at the cartridge. We got Arcade Classics right there. It says Arcade Classics on top. Centipede, Missile Command, and of course that little Pong little thing right there is telling you that, yeah, Pong. All the manuals in here too. Let's check this out. Now this is one of those crappy black and white manuals that I'm not a big fan of, but when did this game come out? Because I know usually the black and white manuals are the later releases. So let's see here. It's got to be a copyright somewhere in there. 1996. Yeah, so this is definitely a late release for the Genesis. What do we have here? We have a registration card for Sega. We can definitely file out this right here and send it in and let them know that you purchased Arcade Classics. Sega Saturn registration, really? That's bizarre. It's not even a Sega Saturn game. That is really interesting. Look at that. There is a Sega Saturn registration card inside of a Genesis game. That's really, really interesting. So right here, I mean, right away, let's look at the back right here. We have Experts coming soon to the Sega Genesis. Never even heard of that game before. I wonder if it actually did come to the Genesis, or maybe it got canceled. Have you ever heard of this game before? If so, comment down below and let me know, because I never heard of that game. Got Missile Command, and of course you got the table of contents. Definitely feels very, very cheap. So it's not like your normal, good old-fashioned Genesis manual. It feels very paperish, thin. And of course this was the era of the little small second model Genesis right there. And I remember playing that Genesis quite a bit at my cousin's house. And there's nothing wrong with it. I got the job done. I prefer the first model, but the second model works perfectly fine. And we got the Centipede. I guess that's the main menu right there. So that gives you an idea of what we're going to be looking at. And according to the main menu, if that's the main menu right there, it says Centipede Ultra Pong and Missile Command. So we're not getting just normal Pong, we're getting Ultra Pong. And that's your table of contents right there. And we got the gameplay right there. A little bit of screenshot. Gives you a brief description of what we're doing. And the game menus is to make a selection. Press D-pad up or down to select the game and press start. So it's pretty self-explanatory. I think we're not that stupid. Alright, so we got the wave speed. We got the main game menu right there. So yeah, this is pretty much... Yeah, nice picture of the Sega Genesis controller right there. Look at that. Alright, so what game is this? Let's see here. Centipede, alright. So we go to like this page right here. It actually has very, very blurry renditions of the screenshot of the game of the enemies. So that's a magic mushroom, that thing right there. That is a spider. That is a flea. And that is a scorpion. I get a kick out of that because it kind of looks like something you would see on 2600. It's like you can barely make out what it is, but that is what it is. We got Ultra Pong. What the hell is Ultra Pong? Never heard of Ultra Pong before. This must be something exclusive to the Sega Genesis. So this is a typical Pong game, so yeah, that's the manual. I'm curious to know about that game right there. Experts. So let's head over to the Sega Genesis, and let's pop it in, and let's play some of the arcade classics, and celebrate the 42nd anniversary of the 2600 by playing some good old-fashioned Atari classics. Let's go. Alright, so we got our Sega Genesis right there. We got our 6-button controller. Let's see if we can get a little bit more light here so you guys can see exactly what we're using. That should be good enough right there. We're using our 6-button controller for the Sega Genesis. I've already plugged in. And we're going to pop in our Missile Command into our 32X. The 32X has better video output. So we're going to head over to the CRT and play some good old-fashioned Atari games on the Sega Genesis. Let's head over right now. Alright, so here we are playing arcade classics on the Sega Genesis. We're booting up the game right here. Let's see what we get here. Time to celebrate the 42nd birthday of the Atari 2600 by playing some classic Atari games on the Sega Genesis. And speaking of Sega Genesis, there is a classic... Excuse me here for a second. We got the title screen right there with the spider, and they got the centipede. So as I mentioned before, there is a classic Sega Genesis console being released to the masses quite soon, probably within the next week or so, and it looks really, really good. You can play it on modern TVs, and it has, like, you can buy 6-button controllers for it. It looks really, really cool. So it's similar to the NES Classic, Mini Classic gaming system, but maybe even better. It has a lot of games on it. Highly recommend picking one up. They're going to be selling them at Best Buy. And probably GameStop and all over the place. You'll probably find them, but I'll probably be buying mine over at Best Buy. That's usually where I pick up all my games nowadays. Alright. So we have all the copyrights right here. 96. We got Ultra Pong, Missile Command, Centipede. You know, all that stuff in it. Alright, so here we go. We got the classic version. I don't know what the hell that means. Why not? Let's choose that first. Okay, so there's apparently a Sega version and a classic version. That's going to be interesting. Let's check this out. I mean, first of all, let's look at the main menu right here. Right away. Oh, there's the audio. So I have the audio going out of the headset check on my Genesis, and I had the dial turned all the way down. Completely did not notice that. For a second I thought that there was no background music, but it turns out that there is. So right there on top you have, on the top left, you have centipedes with the mushrooms, get the spider in the center on top. Then over on the right side you have pretty much the Sega Genesis rendition of Missile Command. Alright, so let's play some Centipede. And I'm using a 6-button controller, which this game definitely does not use a 6-button controller, but it works fine with it, as you can see here. And this is definitely an arcade port of Centipede. Alright, we barely made it through that round right there. Oh, he got me. So yeah, that's pretty damn good. Let's see if we turn the audio down a little bit. It's a pretty damn good arcade port of Centipede. It looks pretty good. Plays good. Oh! Now, I haven't played a Sega Genesis game on memory lane in a while. I don't have a whole lot of Sega Genesis games, but maybe I should start, doing a lot more episodes on Genesis. I have a good old handful of games on the Genesis that are pretty decent library of games, but let's see, I have probably about maybe 35 to 40 Genesis games at the most. I don't have a whole lot. I mean, surprisingly, I have a lot more Super Nintendo games. But the Super Nintendo games, I just have like a bunch of random stuff, and I bought a huge lot that included like a ton of Super Nintendo games that were really good that I will probably never play. I'll probably demonstrate them here on the CRT. So I got a game over right there. So how do we get out of this game? Alright, so we have to enter our initials in right here. And that is definitely not the original music. So we got some good old-fashioned Sega Genesis music right there. We got GPE. We got the some Atari mentions right there. I'm surprised that there's no Atari logos in this game at all. Like, what the hell's going on here? It's really weird. So how do we get back to the main menu on this game? So like some sort of special... Maybe we have to hit the reset. Let's see. We're going to hit reset. And we got the beautiful Sega logo right there. Just have to wait for it to boot up. And we got the title screen, Arcade Classics. And there's like literally no mention of Sega or nothing. And not Sega, but Atari. There is a mention of Sega. But what I meant was Atari. And you do see some Atari mentions right there, but there's no Atari logos. What the hell? So let's try Ultra Pong. So you got Pong. You have to choose your style. Okay, so this definitely looks like probably an arcade port of Pong of some sort. Maybe it was modified so that it would be called Ultra Pong on the Sega Genesis. So basically the only thing we're doing here is playing Pong. Probably the first video game in the history of video games, as far as I know. Pong was definitely the first Atari game. And once again, there was like no mention of Atari at all, except for a couple of copyrights. But I like to see my good old-fashioned Atari logos. What the heck? I mean, after all, we're celebrating the 42nd birthday of the Atari 2600 by playing some Atari games here. I wonder what the deal is with this. Let's see here. So yeah, that's Pong. We'll restart it again so that we can check out the Missile Command. We'll check Missile Command out, see how that looks. Alright, so let's get to the, you can see there's a couple mentions of Atari, but still no Atari logo. I wonder how Sega pulled that one off. And here we have Missile Command. Definitely probably my favorite label art for the 2600. And this is definitely not the 2600 version, it's like the arcade version. Definitely a really good game. Yeah, blew up that jet right there. I completely missed... Oh, I actually got him. And this is actually pretty good on the Genesis. It's not bad. Looks good. And the sound effects are not bad either. So, you know, it's probably using some sort of... I don't know if it's using an emulator at all to play this game. So, you know, back then they could probably somehow port this to the Sega Genesis. And have it run on its actual hardware without emulation. As you probably saw, there was a game on the PlayStation. I'm not sure if it plays fine on the Genesis that I meant, not the PlayStation. Well, what I was gonna say is that there was an Atari game that was released on the PlayStation, Activision Classics, and the audio on that game is horrible. The emulation is pretty bad. As far as the audio goes, the gameplay itself is good. But what I meant to say was the Genesis copy of this game, the audio actually sounds pretty good. It's not bad. But I don't think they're using emulation though. I think they actually just ported the game over properly. So that it's actually playing on the real hardware. Without using any assistant emulation. So yeah, that's Missile Command. So we're going to go back to it, and we're going to check out what the heck the difference is between the classic and the Sega mode. So I honestly have no idea. So right now we're on a classic version. Let's go to Sega version. Let's find out what we get. So we'll try Centipede first. And this is the Sega version of Centipede. So as you can see there, it's a lot more colorful. And the sprites look probably nicer. So this is a Sega Genesis version of Centipede. It looks really cool. I approve. It looks pretty awesome. Get over here. So it takes your original Atari arcade version of Centipede and it makes it look better. So, for us good old-fashioned Sega fans, we had a lot of appreciation for Atari games, and we were able to play this game and even make it look even better. So a restored, awesome copy of Centipede right here. So let's go back and let's check out what the other two games look like. We got Pong and Missile Command. So as mentioned before, this game came out pretty late in the Sega Genesis life cycle. It came out like around 96. That's pretty late. During that time, people were already buying Sega Saturn or the PlayStation, probably Nintendo 64, things like that. So Sega version of Ultra Pong. Is there any difference? No. Wait, the audio sounds a little different. It sounds like they changed the audio on it. So the audio actually sounds like something you would hear on a Sega Genesis. Like you actually hear like a ball hitting like a tennis racket. So rather than changing the graphics on the Pong, they changed the audio. That's pretty cool. So there's no graphical differences on Pong, but the audio is different and it sounds better. So we're going to go back and we're going to check out Missile Command. Now I remember back in the day I had a Sega Master System, and the Sega Master System had something that was quite similar to this game right here with the classic Atari games. Alright, we're going to play Missile Command. Let's see what we get. And look at that. We've got some what appears to be 16-bit graphics, and it looks pretty cool. Oh yeah, that looks really nice. I would play this. That is awesome. This is a good old-fashioned hidden gem on the Sega Genesis right here. A 16-bit version of an Atari 2600 game, or technically an Atari arcade release. It looks really good. It looks better than the arcade version. Look at that, that is awesome. Got the nice 16-bit Genesis sprites on the bottom. Look at the nice color, look at that. I think so far this is my favorite Sega mode, or Sega version of these games right here. This definitely looks nice. Of course, the Centipede game looks really good. But this one definitely, for me, is definitely the better one. It looks really, really cool. It's very, very, very much playable. You can use the 3-button joystick or the 6-button joypad, whichever one you prefer. Alright, this game's pretty fun. I think I could probably sit here for quite a long time playing this game. And of course, this week we're celebrating the 42nd anniversary of the 2600. And what better way to celebrate but to play some good old-fashioned Atari games, and Sega decided to make their Atari port look even better. And this is really cool. I wonder if there's any other Atari classics on the Sega Genesis. I'll have to do some research. One thing I would love to see is like a Pitfall or River Raid remade on the Sega Genesis in 16-bit graphics. That'd be pretty cool. I mean, this looks awesome. Look at this. I'll say a good job to whoever developed this game and remade Missile Command in 16-bit. It looks pretty cool. I like it. I'm a fan of this game right here. This is pretty awesome. So that is Arcade Classics for the Sega Genesis, featuring Centipede, Pong, and Missile Command. Definitely interesting, and the Missile Command is definitely my favorite part of this cartridge. Especially the Sega Genesis version of the game right here. So if you go from original version to Sega version, the graphics look really, really cool. And it's just really, really awesome to see a 16-bit version of a classic Atari game right here. So if you enjoyed this episode of Memory Lane, don't forget to give a thumbs up and comment down below. I will be continuing to play this game as the video fades to black, because this game is awesome. And if you enjoyed this episode, as mentioned before, I'm going to continue playing this game. Just let me know what you think down below, and so long, because I'm going to be playing this game. This game's awesome.